Hello and welcome to Off the Shelf Reviews.
I actually like Ben Kingsley in Thunderbirds.
And I'm Gary. And today we're going to review and discuss Suspect Zero, which released in 2004. Written by Zach Penn and Billy Ray and directed by Elias Merhige. Ian, why don't you give us the synopsis?
Well, the story follows Aaron Eckhart's character, Agent Thomas McElway. He's an FBI agent who has come into some evidence that somebody may be going around America killing people. Surprise. We're also following Sir Ben Kingsley, playing Benjamin O'Ryan, who seems to have a special ability to not only locate people around the country, but also hunt them down and possibly kill them.
Sick. It's a matter of opinion.
So this film had a bit of production troubles,
Oh dear.
you could say, right from the get-go. Original screenwriter Zach Penn penned the script back in 1995.
Oh, wow.
And this was at a time when he was shipping it around to Hollywood studios and none of them were particularly interested in a serial killer genre movie about a serial killer hunting serial killers. And so they all passed on it, although eventually the script was purchased. But then it underwent several rewrites.
Yeah.
At one point, Sylvester Stallone was attached to star in the role. So was Tom Cruise, as well as Ben Affleck. And apparently all of those actors also had their sway in terms of altering the script. And eventually those actors backed away and Aaron Eckhart would step in for the role. But the original script writer, Zach Penn, pretty much disowned the movie by the time it went through all of the drafts and rewrites before it became something that wasn't his own anymore. So I was like, who are these writers actually? Because I'm pretty sure I know their names from previous projects.
Yeah.
Zach Penn is actually one of the writers for Last Action Hero.
Okay.
And he also explained he had the exact same problem there, where he wrote the script, had the idea, and the studios butchered it and ruined it compared to what he had.
Yeah, Arnie would have come along and gone, nope, that's what we're doing.
Yeah, but he would also go on to be a screenwriter for X-Men 2
Ah.
and also the X-Men Last Stand.
Yeah, okay.
But he was also a co-writer on Avengers Assemble, and he is the writer for the new Karate Kid, which is going to be coming out 2024.
Oh, wow, okay.
So I'm like, okay, well, he's definitely got some talent.
Yes,
obviously.
yeah, I was going to say that.
But then I was like, so who was the guy that's credited with doing the rewrites?
Yeah.
This guy worked on Volcano in 1997.
Okay.
He also worked on Terminator Dark Fate.
That's it. This motherfucker did Terminator Dark Fate.
Oh, he did some other stuff as well, but I just thought that would be enough.
But did he, are you telling me he helped write or wrote?
Yes, yeah. So you might then be able to discern the quality of this film, but then let's look at the director. Because this was also a director I was like, I think I know this name. And it was because this is the director of Shadow of the Vampire.
Yes.
The William Dafoe, John Malkovich, Obed Keir.
Yeah, I did like it's the reenactment of the
Nosferatu
movie.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
So I was like, okay, this is an artistic director who's done some stuff, but I'm not particularly aware of. So I'm kind of intrigued by this movie.
Yeah.
Suspect Zero, which came out in 2004 and flopped hard because the film would actually finish production in 2002 and the studio delayed it. They delayed it 2 years before they eventually released it.
Ouch.
And yeah, it flopped hard. So much so that I don't know anyone who's ever seen or heard of this film. And so when it was mentioned for this review, I was like, what?
Yeah. I didn't wiki it. You know, I walked in completely surprising. I was getting my notes down and I was just like, oh, okay.
It's like 3 movies this year you've not wikied.
Well, you know, people say don't wiki movies, so you don't, and then you walk blind into these fucking things.
We live
and
in
it's
strange times.
It's like a, more realistic feeling. I don't know if it's back up when I wiki them and I'm like, I know what I'm getting involved in then, so I'm all ready to fucking hate on it. Like I wiki Dark Fate, still went and watched that and bought that fucking shit on DVD. And I digress. Suspect Zero, though, I was just like, okay, let's be good. We'll go into it blind. But then, obviously, you look and you're like, oh, Aaron Eckhart. Yeah, okay. Year before, did The Core. He'd go on to be Two-Face. Not a bad actor. Can bring some stuff to his character. Ben Kingsley. Sir. My mistake. Sir Ben Kingsley, like I said. I mean, this motherfucker was Gandhi. He was the Hood in Thunderbirds. Sexy Beast is a fucking classic role. So, you know, I'm like, how are these two gonna work in this movie? You know, I saw Carrie-Anne Moss was on the list.
Fresh off the Matrix trilogy.
Exactly. I mean, we had Kevin Chamberlain as well, who plays the commander in fucking the Matrix sequel. So I'm like, okay, so those two have a bit of a, or will, I suppose, while this movie was being produced, they were working together to make the Matrix movie. So they've got some background with each other. And then the movie kind of starts where, like, you're kind of following this POV over some mud, and you're seeing like kids' toys and the missing picture on an American milk carton of a kid missing, and then it comes up into a like a diner. You know, it's night, it's fucking raining like shit, and I'm like,
Very
right.
atmospheric and moody.
Yeah, I'm like, all right, already an ominous feeling right from the offset.
Well, we also get the fake jump scare, don't we? As we get the hands pressed up against the window.
Yeah,
it's
yeah,
just
yeah.
a couple laughing as they're going running by.
Yeah.
And so it's like, so who is this stranger, this gentleman at the diner on his own in the middle of the night?
The funny thing is, I'd recognise him. He's an actor called Kevin Chamberlain, who plays Harold Speck, the character in this, and he's from Die Hard with a Vengeance. He's the guy who's trying to defuse the bomb in the school.
Oh,
who
really?
gets the red
Oh,
stuff in
wow.
his face. As soon as I saw him, I'm like, hey, it's the guy from Die Hard with a Vengeance.
Well, in this film, he's a piece of shit. But we don't
We
know
don't
that
know
right
that,
away.
yeah,
We
yeah.
don't know that right away, but so spoilers. Because we just think he's an ordinary person sat in this diner until we see this weird camera angle. We see these feet come in.
Yeah.
And then the camera follows the feet as we end up following what will be Ben Kingsley sitting down right in front of this guy, presenting him some charcoal drawings
Yeah.
and confronting him about this imagery, which of course is showing dead bodies or dead children's bodies.
Yeah.
And so he reacts as you would imagine anyone would react if you were presented by a stranger with horrific imagery.
Yeah.
And he gets up in his car and he leaves.
Yeah, well, I mean, they have a bit of a chat, don't they, in this booth before, Speck gets up and leaves. And yeah, like you said, he is a bit kind of thrown back by this imagery. But I take it back to, like, the conversation in The Hitcher.
Okay.
You know, where, Rutger Hauer was, like, the controlling evil presence in that. I didn't really get that from Kingsley in this. Like, whatever he was showing this guy, yeah, was horrible. But my brain's already like, why is he showing him this? Killers don't normally do this. You know, they normally hide in the back seat, wait for you to come in and jam you in the neck.
I don't know. I mean,
why walk in
we've
there
had
and
like
pre-warn the guy?
a decade of Dexter, and that was pretty much his MO when he was about to take one of his victims out. He presented them with all of their horrific imagery.
Yeah,
so,
yeah.
I think...
But the way the movie is presenting this, and I picked it up like halfway through the movie of, the movie's trying to red herring Ben Kingsley.
Yeah.
You know, like I said, we don't know that this Speck's a piece of shit. So when he gets into his car and he's driving away, and Ben Kingsley appears and he's just like, you need to pull over because I really don't want to do this at like 70 miles per hour. You're like, this motherfucker's dead.
Look, I have money. It's not a lot.
Nobody wants your money, Harold. Just pull in.
Why?
Because I wouldn't want to do this at 70 miles an hour.
And then when we come across the body, we realise that the character, Benjamin O'Ryan, has cut the eyelids off of this guy's eyes. And so he's just staring. It's the weirdest makeup special effect I think I've ever seen. Where, like, my brain's, uncanny valley. My brain's telling me the guy's dead, but I know that the actor is still alive. So this actor is lying there with this prosthetics on. His eyes closed.
I mean, I don't know, like, obviously the killer has cut the eyelids off, so the eyes appear to have bulged out of their sockets slightly. It's a very odd, but it's a bit of a shocking image. You know?
It is, yeah.
And we do see these eyes throughout the rest of the film as during all the montages of collected evidence as it goes on. But there was also the calling card, the symbol, the circle with a line through it. And then there was also some other clues that he finds in the car, which would lead him back to the diner.
Yes.
But we're also intercutting during this back to Ben Kingsley, who's playing Benjamin O'Ryan, who is in a trance-like state, charcoaling what he's seeing with his second sight. And he is literally... He's literally drawing what the cameraman is filming. It's like, how did he get up there? I don't know.
Yeah.
But It's one of those astral projection.
They call it remote viewing.
They
don't
do in
they?
this, yeah.
Hypnotist. You're in such a hypnotic state that you can project yourself to a place where you want to be, I suppose. Because I don't really fully try to understand it, because Aaron Eckhart is the guy who's been called in to have a look at this evidence, because he's like one of the best burnt out detectives who's been chasing killers.
He's
and
been demoted down from Dallas now to Albuquerque, New Mexico, and so a much smaller precinct of the FBI. So he's kind of not been fired, but we don't find out until the midpoint in the film why he's here. But he's the one who's now on this case.
And when he goes out to the crime scene and he's checking out, I mean, he has that confrontation with the mechanic who goes to move the car. He's like, "Don't you realize you're touching evidence?" And his superior is just like, "Whoa, I'm gonna like you because you do everything by the book." And like Gary said, we're then cutting back to Ben Kingsley, who's kind of in the trance, listening to this radio play, drawing these numbers and concentrating. And then the movie's editing in these shots of the camera looking at the crime scene from above. It's got a weird kind of pinkish colour on it to tell us that he's in a trance. And I was sat there and I was watching the movie and I'm like I said, I didn't get the ominous feeling from Kingsley as a killer. And now I'm not getting an ominous feeling of why he's following the FBI agents. Because it's more like he's left clues for them to follow him, more so than hiding himself from them and giving them a dead body.
Yeah.
You know what?
Well, now, I like, in trying to explain the narrative flow of the film, it feels like, to try and explain it, feels a bit convoluted.
Yeah, it does.
Whereas it's actually pretty straightforward. Once you understand the whole Icarus project that the film is trying to, or will eventually explain, which... It's a thing in the film, but they say was real, but it's not. Actually.
Yeah.
However,
or was it?
Well, there was documented, based on the Stargate project run by the Defense Intelligence Agency, which was also adapted into a movie, The Men Who Stare at Goats.
Love that movie.
Exactly. So that film kind of makes fun of the fact that millions and millions of real-world money was spent to develop psychics for, spying, essentially.
Oh, yeah, dude, they can blow your heart up from like 100 miles away, don't you know
It's like
that?
scanners stuff.
Yeah, totally, bro.
So this film, it's just like, it's a crime serial killer genre movie, but it also has what is it like, almost a sci-fi layer, a supernatural layer, almost like an X-Files layer, and put on top of it.
And it feels like, and like we said, it went through developmental hell, that it feels like somebody wrote something and then went, no, that's not going to work. We'll have to put something else in. And then somebody else come along and gone, that's not really going to work. So we're going to edit it down. So it just gets more and more diluted.
Absolutely. The film gets jumbled and it kind of loses a bit of direction. I would still say that the pace of the film retains itself.
Yeah.
But it gets a bit convoluted with the red herrings or the other bits and pieces that don't really matter being in there. And I'm like, was that because of the revisions of the scripts where different people had different ideas that it was going to go?
Yeah.
Because there's all these setups with no real payoffs. And it's essentially following Thomas McAway figuring out who the killer is.
Yeah.
And also, inexplicably, is also capable of this second sight.
Oh, yeah. That's, like, I wasn't too sure if Kingsley was doing that from where he was,
projecting to him
himself, or if Aaron Eckhart had always had this power and that's why he was able to hunt down like there's a serial rapist, I think he's called Stanley, that this is why he got demoted. Eckhart had chased him all the way into Mexico, beat the crap out of him, dragged him back, and because Mexico has no extradition or whatever, Stanley got off, he's just been let out, and Aaron Eckhart's been demoted because, they don't want the bad press. So Kingsley uses that, he
sees something in Thomas that makes him like himself.
Yeah, and so it's like, but he's also, he's faxing all these missing people pages to the police station, which I wasn't
actually addressed to Thomas as well.
Yeah, as well. But there was that bit where it was just, there was hundreds of them just coming out of these fax machines, and I couldn't tell if that was part of a dream or if he was actually there and people were just ignoring these fucking fax machines that are spitting out all these papers. Because hundreds of millions of people go missing every day, and so the movie tries to tell you. Yeah, mate. Oh yeah, it's a big bad fucking world out there. Every second, I don't fucking know how it works, but. The movie tries to, in a way, say, "Oh yeah, Ben Kingsley's the bad guy," and I'm like, I don't really buy that.
Yeah,
and
that's it. The film language doesn't say he's the villain. It literally, suggests that he's a man on a mission.
But it's that big truck sequences as well. We get little flashes of this truck going round, and Kingsley's hunting this other killer down who we really never see until the very fucking end of the movie. And even then, it's not even enough to make us go, oh, who was that guy?
Exactly. So it makes the actual villain of the film pretty inconsequential to most of it.
Yeah, because the
in terms of I guess having a strong third act, a finale.
Yeah.
It makes it weakens it in essence.
Because we get a little bit of a flash in Thomas's character where he sees himself and another figure, and one of the figures is knelt down in the middle of the desert, and he's got a gun in him, and there's a gun blast. So you're like, oh, what's that? Is that a past thing between him and Orion, or is that going to happen? Because we find out Orion's like an ex-FBI agent at one point. I'm like, these guys working together?
Yeah, so I was like, so is it like second sight astral projection where they're seeing the present? But I'm like, well, no, he's actually drawing the future. So
because he predicts what that serial rapist is going to do to then be there to stop, which is kind of a cool sequence actually. But he stops it by breaking the window, pulls the guy out, fucking murders him, and then tells the girl, look away. And then when McAway, Aaron Eckhart's character, and Carrie-Anne Moss turn up, she sees the body and she tells him like it's the guy you've been hunting for fucking ages. And McAway's just like, really? And that's when he twigs, hang on, our guy, the guy we've been chasing, hasn't killed this girl. And then if we look into the history of the guy at the diner and the guy that they found in the boot of the car as well, which was registered to somebody else, all these are serial killers. Harold Speck had like a case in his fucking attic with a girl's cut off face.
A mask
in it.
That he would wear, obviously.
The guy that they found in the boot of the car, he had like fucking hundreds or 20 or so fucking young boys' bodies in his fucking, in his basement. And so I'm like, oh, okay, film, you caught up. Ben Kingsley is not the bad guy.
Yeah, it is frustrating because you're kind of just waiting for your characters to catch up with where the film language has been letting us know what's actually going on.
Yeah.
And then we're also following Thomas McAway's slow deterioration as a result of having all these psychic flashes.
Yeah,
He's taking lots of medication to try and suppress it. And so he ends up collapsing and ends up at one point going back to Fran's place.
Yeah.
And that was where I was just like, this whole relationship thing here is just very weird.
Yeah.
Where it's like, has she taken the fall with him? Is she blaming him? Were they married because they mentioned the ring? I was like, was there some sort of love triangle?
Yeah.
It's so unexplained.
I didn't even get that from them, that she liked him or hated him. It just felt like,
weird.
It maybe just be Carrie-Anne Moss doing her fucking, Memento character all over again, where she's just kind of dull. I'm not saying she's a bad actress, but she can just play, especially in this, where
I think she's just so wasted in this.
Or maybe, like we said, with the rewrites, like they start off getting together with this relationship back history, and then in the next scene that they got to do, that's all forgotten because they've not done anything. So
I think like in the original script, they were just colleagues. They just worked together.
Yeah, because he says like, oh, you've been with this other guy for like 6 months, and at that point in the movie, you're like, so you guys aren't working together? Oh, why? And then you find out that he's been demoted, and you go, oh, that's why. And then you see her in the flashback where you're like, okay, so what happened to her? And then when he's starting to have his breakdowns, he just turns to her and he goes, no, I'll be fine. And she leaves, she just lets him go. And I'm like, all right, we're following now Eckhart's character, right? Maybe yeah. We're following.
And he's back at the precinct trying to explain how this telepathy and stuff is working. Yeah. And everyone looks at him like he's crazy.
Because he's seen all the evidence at this halfway house.
Right.
Where, Orion was living, where he'd had this massive, huge map of America with all these numbers in, which he's been writing down in this hypnotic state, and it turns out that certain ones are missing people all around the country, and so they're linking him. And so his FBI buddies are like, well, he's definitely a killer then, and That's what Aaron Eckhart's like. No, because he hasn't killed any of these other people. Like he gets stopped by a cop, doesn't he?
That's right, yeah.
And he fucking pulls a gun. Like Orion ends up pulling a gun on a cop, and you're like, oh, he's gonna kill him. But in my mind, I'm like, no, he's not. He hasn't killed anybody in this entire movie other than killers.
Profile the guy. He's straight out of Quantico. He's working a case just like we would. He's not kidnapping these little kids. He's chasing the guy that's doing the kidnapping. Look at the map.
And we kept seeing that black truck driving around. We had that horrible sequence where the mum and the son, she's putting her fucking wash now in the middle of a fucking field, and the boy's swinging on a swing in the field with his mum, so he's not very far away. And somehow the killer sneaks up, grabs the kid, gets back
into
in
the
truck
truck
and drives off before the mum's here.
Yeah, I didn't buy that either. I was like, because it's a massive open field area. I was like,
yeah,
I didn't buy it.
I guess
but there was also because there was also like going back to the beginning as well with when Speck, like, he sat with him at the diner, and then it cuts to him leaving the diner, getting into his car, and driving away, and then Ben Kingsley gets up at the back seat, and I'm like, wait a minute,
I'm like,
we saw that car was isolated on its own in that car park. I was like, there's no way he got, because Speck got out of the diner first.
Yeah, so Kingsley would have had to have fucking circled around and come inside the other door.
So I was like, that was another thing I did right. However,
yeah,
I'm pretty sure there was a line of dialogue somewhere when they go back to the diner and they're interviewing them, and he says that Speck complained to him about somebody harassing him or bothering him.
Right.
Like I said, I never really saw him. Harold came up complaining about the guy, but by the time I turned around, he was gone.
Can you just...
So I was like, okay, so we didn't really get to see it in real time, but while he was complaining, Ben Kingsley probably got in his car then. I was like, but still the guy the kid on the swing, I was like, nah.
It's like there was a couple of sequences, like you had the two kids on the biking, and then the big truck came down behind them, and then we saw the bike just smashed into the ground, or like you'd see things with kids where the kids would go missing, but the movie's not really explaining. It's trying to, make you imagine that, these people are being killed, but not explaining how. And so then ultimately, like, fucking Aaron Eckhart's character is sat in a traffic jam. He's been, like, they took his gun off him.
Yeah.
And fucking...
But he's been, sent on leave again, sent home.
Yeah, because obviously he's fucking just going crazy. And he looks over at this truck, and he's got flashes, or had flashes, or whatever, that the kid in the side of this truck that we see
is held captive.
Is the kidnapped kid that we're hearing about on the radio. And so he chases them all the way to the fun fair. And it turns out that the truck driver is actually maybe the granddad or the father of this boy, because he takes it to his family. So Aaron Eckhart's like, oh, damn, I thought it was the bad guy, and turns around and bang.
O'Reilly's right in his face.
Yeah.
Because, well, I guess that's where he saw he would be.
Yeah, I'm guessing.
But he had also led him on pretty much led him enough clues to lead him all the way back to his place, because they end up finding out that O'Reilly's ex-FBI, that he was part of the Icarus program. You have this whole sequence where he ends up pulling back the wallpaper of his place and seeing the black hole of souls.
I like that actor as well that he was talking to inside the halfway house. Like, he's a famous actor. I forgot to write his name down, but he was this one saying about, you're going to be hunting like a 50-foot shark.
Well, that's it. Like, because the whole 50-foot shark is kind of like its own weird, like, subplot of the film.
Yeah.
Because when he goes to find him, he meets with another stranger when he's asking first about the circle with a line through it.
Yeah.
And he's just like, out of the blue, he's just like, hunting ever see a 50-foot shark? No. Well, that doesn't mean they don't exist.
A 50-foot shark. You ever see one?
No.
Doesn't mean there aren't any.
It's like, okay, that's weird.
Yeah.
And then when he's looking at, when he finds the information thing, and he's got all those newspaper clippings about himself.
Yeah.
Written down the side is an image of a shark with a hook and, like, come find me, which of course leads him to come and find. So I'm like, so is Ben Kingsley now the 50-foot shark? Because the other guy that he talked to earlier explains what the 50-foot shark is, and that is essentially the one who goes unnoticed, who isn't seen, and who is basically a serial killer who, by definition, has a pattern, whereas the shark doesn't. So
Yeah.
you can't predict him, you can't find him easily because he has no pattern. And then when Orion is pulled over and almost arrested,
Yeah.
he asks the cop, when the cop asks what the blade's for, and he says it's to hunt the 50-foot shark.
Yeah.
So I'm like, well, is the shark then each of the people, each of the serial killers that he's killing?
Yeah.
What exactly were you planning on hunting?
A 50-foot shark.
And so I'm like, well, it's kind of like a Moby Dick thing, where he's constantly hunting the white whale, the evil whale.
Yeah, but that's our interpretation of it. The movie just drops it in there and then doesn't really pay it off.
Well, it kind of does.
Oh, okay.
Like, right at the finale of the film.
Well, the two of them have, Eckhart and Kingsley have gone to this farmhouse where the truck driver lives, and they have come across a mass fucking shit ton of graves, which I'm like, that's not like it's not noticeable from fucking the air. And this guy's been living there. We don't know if he's got a family. We don't know if he's got children. Maybe he lives on his own.
The villain of the film is really so...
Just, he's got this horrible room and shit. And he comes... The truck driver comes home and they give chase in their car, don't they? He doesn't even stop. He sees them and drives off. I'm like, you didn't fucking see that, did you, Ben?
But they both crash.
They both crash in this spectacular crash in the desert. Which the kid that he's kidnapped is in the truck and still alive. Is it like he figures it? Is it the refrigerator burns?
Yes, that's
right. He comes
right.
out from the cold of the inside of the truck. So Carrie-Anne Moss has miraculously turned up as well. I don't know how she realised that
They're
he
so
was gonna
fast
be
as
there.
well, yeah.
She just got there so fast, and he tells her, "Look, the kid's in the back of the truck." So she goes down there, and fucking McAway, Eckhart's character, is chasing after the killer. Like we said, he's just a trucker, the trucker killer, I suppose you call him. And he gets all the way up there, and they start struggling on these rocks. They have a little bit of a scuffle. It's not even like a big fight or anything. It's just a bit of a scuffle, to the point where McAway, Eckhart's character, has to get a stone, and he's so angry, he's so burnt out, he's so mad, he's so pushed, he's so controlled or whatever. He bashes in the killer's head.
Which goes back to why he ended up getting demoted in the first place, because he was, willing to break the rules and take justice into his own hands.
Yeah.
Very much so, like
Orion's character.
And
And
Orion's
then Orion's
there.
willing to hand it on to him. He's just like, oh, well, you'll carry on my work, but you need to stop me because you need to turn it off.
It's the fact that Orion is just like, you've done it. You've killed this guy. You've killed the 50-foot shark.
Yeah.
But Thomas is just like, but there's like thousands more
Yeah.
out there just like it.
Yeah.
And that's when he just kind of, Orion has a bit of a breakdown at that realization. Like,
It was pretty good acting from Ben Kingsley.
you,
I mean,
you know what? This
you know?
scene has the best acting in the whole movie.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
it's a shame that it comes right near, hour 40 mark at the end of the film, that we have some actual emotional,
I suppose it's a good payoff because it'd been building like that. The movie had misled us.
but it's taken a freaking long time to get
Don't
here.
you fucking tell me.
And honestly, this scene still very much so disappoints me.
Yeah.
Because even though we've got this whole Ahab and this whale and thing, and then we realise, as we've slowly realised throughout the film, that Orion is suffering greatly with his inability to shut off his abilities, his gift, his power, whatever. It's driven him crazy because he sees and smells and tastes and knows all of the victims. They are all living inside him. So he is tormented, and the possibility of there being thousands more out there with hundreds of thousands more victims, he pleads to be killed, to die. And he also foresaw this event happening.
Which is what we'd already seen, them in the desert, him on his knees.
We'd had flash cuts to it throughout the film,
And Thomas can't bring himself to do it, but when Orion goes to attack or he's scuffling with him, that's when
he pulls the knife again.
Carrie-Anne Moss from fucking really far away fires and kills Orion, and he's kind of happy. He's at peace, isn't he? As he's
very much so.
Kind of passing.
So tired. Thank you.
And it was quite a cool little transition, I thought, at the end, where, it goes from them into the charcoal picture.
Yeah, so it just goes to show, like, how much they had seen this event come to pass. Like, they may not have known exactly the details when they saw the future.
Which was kind of cool for me, because by the end of it, I was hoping that the movie would be a little bit more than just a serial killer chasing serial killers kind of thing. There was this Project Icarus kind of sci-fi element in there. But it just, when the movie ended, I was like, oh, that's over.
Well, yeah. Now, in the original script, that's not the ending. Of course, they changed it. They made it a happy ending for the film.
Oh, right. Whereas... And then Ben Kingsley skip off into the sunset.
Yeah, that's a great ending. No, obviously, Kingsley still dies here, but he literally passes the torch. Like, you now... Because throughout the film, McAway's been struggling with his own abilities, his own sixth sense. That he now finally understands what his gift is. And in the original script would continue to do the work of Orion by hunting down and killing serial killers, because that was in his nature, which is what Orion saw throughout the news and everything else that led him to find him, because he felt like they were the same. But
does that make Orion the 50-foot shark if he's killing serial killers?
They are the sharks, yeah. The 50-foot sharks are the serial killer hunters, I believe.
Right, yeah, the predator hunting the predators.
Yeah, and of course you've never seen one, but doesn't mean they don't exist.
True.
But yeah, I mean, that's, they operate from the shadows and they don't have a pattern and all that. So I was like, I like the original script ending. I think the film's ending sucks. And I thought the best bit of acting came at the very end of the film as well, so it's a bit of a mess for me. Yeah. But that's one thing we kind of mentioned, is like the director going into this film also said in his own DVD commentary that he did not want to make a serial killer genre movie.
Right, okay.
By also making a serial killer genre movie.
Okay.
But he wanted it to be about something much more deeper, something a bit more about the human condition, the human psyche, within this sort of situation. And I think he failed spectacularly at doing that.
I was going to say, kind of does. Not great.
It's one of these films where I'm just like, it reminds you of like Seven, and Zodiac, and Silence of the Lambs.
Yeah.
But then when you compare this film to any of those, it drops down. And it mainly comes down to the character depth or character development. I think the actors in this do a good enough job for the most part, but the character depth is so shallow, and it doesn't have any emotional weight to it. So any complexities that these characters may have, it's not there, because for me the film is so well shot, it's so well lit, with some great set design, that it's a bit flashy, you know, but the substance just isn't quite there. And so
it's like the scene before was great, but once you move to the next scene, you're like, what happened?
Yeah, it is. Honestly, it's like I really feel like I'm going to forget the title of this film by the time we finish today. But Ian, did you have any favourite scenes from the film?
I think I had a couple. I mean, I liked the sequences with Ben Kingsley, I suppose. Like when he was doing that stuff in the room, with the hypnotist stuff, and then he just starts writing. That was just kind of cool. Maybe it's just Ben Kingsley. He's just really good. That watching him in those sequences, I bought the whole Project Icarus stuff. When the moment I saw this stuff, I was like, oh, right, there's a whole governmental plot that will come in at some point, and he's got this ability to follow people or see him. And then the movie tries to explain it to me, and I didn't like that. What I got from Ben Kingsley in this room was enough. Now it's trying to flash me with pink images and flashes to the future. I'm like, all right, maybe you've had your time. Like the other favourite sequence is where him and McAway are driving in the car, and Orion's explaining everything to him about what he's doing and why he's been doing it and why he can't turn it off and why he needs McAway. And I'm like, finally, movie, you're finally giving me great acting, this moment, same as we go into the ending, as they're having this confrontation against each other on this desert cliff. I'm like, yes, finally, you got some great acting, because at the end of the day, that's what we want from a good movie, is good acting. It gets diluted with all these multiple layers and rewrites and character development and
I don't really have very many favourite scenes from this film. I will say the intro the first sort of 11 minutes, right up until it cuts
Yeah.
to the FBI building.
Yeah.
You know, from the milk carton, the missing person, to the diner, to the weird camera angle of the feet coming
did
in.
like that cat. Yeah, the weird one.
Yeah, to the confrontation at the diner with the showing of the pictures, to him appearing in the back of the car, to the car driving off into the night. I was like, all right, I'm kind of intrigued. Like, I want to see what goes on. And as the film develops, like, the strength of that opening carries you at least to the midpoint.
Yeah.
And then that's when things start to falter.
Yeah.
So I guess for favorite scenes, I would say the production design was fantastic. All of the charcoal drawings, you know, the crime scene photos, the evidence room filled with photos and items,
Yeah.
you know, the overall stylish nature of the film, you know, and the off-kilter camera work, you know, not just the feet entering, but like I like the shot of Thomas opening the information case, you know, the way the camera sort of spins and angles itself.
Yeah.
I was like, that's the sort of camera work that this film has throughout. And I was like, it's very visually arresting to look at in terms of the montages, the edits, and the camera angles. It's very, very interesting. More interesting, I think, than the characters in the film.
Yeah.
So it was almost distracting in a way. But yeah, like other than the intro, there was no standout scene. Which is a bit of a shame, really. Maybe I think it's because the whole film remains pretty consistent in itself that nothing stands out.
Jumps out. Yeah.
No. Ian, do you recommend the film?
I don't really. I want to. I mean, I'm not going to tell people to never watch it. It's not the worst movie I've ever seen, but it's certainly nowhere near even good. You know, average, I suppose. Maybe I'm missing something. Maybe somebody will watch it and go, "Oh my God, you missed out all these layers and things like that, and how the character development." Yeah, that's other people's view. But for me, you know, Aaron Eckhart's good. Ben Kingsley's good. Carrie-Anne Moss is good. A lot of the actors are good. But then when you see that, and you know, and somebody explains to you about developmental hell that a story goes through, you realize actually these people are just doing their job. So they're being paid, so they are going to be really good. The director, yeah, great camera work, some really good, cool ideas to kind of hook you in. But there's just something missing from the core of this movie to not hook you enough to go, fuck, yeah, everybody needs to watch Suspect Zero. Everybody needs to... How has people been sleeping on this movie? It's one of the greatest movies. It's not even that. By the end of the movie, like I said, by the end of this review, you're just kind of like, click, next.
Yeah, it's very forgettable, which is why I'm kind of surprised. I'm actually going to give this film a low recommendation. It's kind of the lowest recommendation I can give that is still a recommendation.
We're not telling you not to. No.
Well, I'm actually going to tell you to kind of. It's not awful, you know, and I think this film is actually very underrated and at least worth a watch. Just for how stylistically strong the visuals are in this serial killer thriller. The plot was fairly easy to follow, it had an okay pace, and, well, Ben Kingsley was fascinating to watch as he delivered such intensity in his scenes. He showed lots of subtleties in his tortured inability to control his second sight. Aaron Eckhart, I think he's always likable, and he portrayed the dedicated detective role well, alongside Carrie-Anne Moss, who had very little to do in the film. The chemistry between the two felt flat, with very little depth to the relationship, due in part to too many script changes and production issues. In part, for me, the film also felt emotionally flat. There wasn't quite enough substance to it, no real urgency, just enough intrigue to carry you on to the end, where the story disappoints in its conclusion. It didn't feel satisfying at all. You know, no emotional payoff or anything to contemplate in a film where the director wanted to explore something deeper in a serial killer genre film. So, yeah, you know, a kind of low recommendation. The music was suitably creepy and eerie. It was very dreamlike in parts, and it matched the multiple montages in the film with great effect. So, yeah, strong production design, great visuals, interesting characters, but lackluster ending. So it's definitely one of those that's maybe worth a watch, with my lowest recommendation. Your number is up. Thanks for watching Off the Shelf Reviews.
Help me turn it off. You're gonna help me.